What does it do, YouTube? Welcome back to another episode of Scotty Says. I'm your host, and welcome to episode 121, my folks. And this is the NFL season wrap-up edition. This is the Super Bowl recap episode, and oh my goodness, what a beat down the Eagles put on KC in the big game, didn't they? And I know the brother from Baltimore, I believe it was, who put out the tweet after they got eliminated by KC in the playoffs. And he put out that tweet, will somebody, anybody, please stop KC. Somebody put a stop to this. We can't keep letting them get away with it. I'm calling on Buffalo. I'm calling on the NFC. Anybody, please stop the madness. Beat the KC team, please. And, well, the Eagles said, we got you, bro. We got you. And they handled them with ease. I mean, the final score is not even indicative of the beatdown that they put upon them, 40-22, but you know, my folks, that I have been coming to you for years now. Many episodes, and I've been touting to you the efficacy, the viability of my golden football rule, the 25-30 principle. And every episode, I keep coming to you, and I keep presenting more data. The 25-30 principle is golden because it does not fail. And so I knew that whoever won the Super Bowl, they were going to follow my 25-30 principle. And yes, it's mine, and I'm trademarking it because it's perfect. It's infallible. It does not miss. And so, sure enough, it was Philadelphia who employed the principle to perfection. And you know, Philadelphia, they live on the principle. And it was KC who was all out of whack, out of balance, and, well, you saw the outcome. So before we get into any of the other things I have on tap on the menu for you, this episode, I want to start out by applying the principle, the 25-30 principle, to the Super Bowl, KC, and Philly. So let's look at it now. Now, as you know, we start with the victors, and that would be the Eagles, Philadelphia, flying high. And let's look at Jalen Hurts. Well, it hurts so good, doesn't it? Jalen Hurts was 17 of 22 on the day, my folks. That's 22 pass attempts. You see, 22. Now, he was sacked. Factor that in. That's a grand total of 25 pass attempts by Jalen Hurts. And that is in compliance with the first metric of the 25-30 principle, which is you cap your quarterback to 30 throws. They had 25 total pass attempts. Check. That's green on the board. Let's look at the second metric because, in order to be in compliance, you've got to hit both metrics. The second metric, the rushing component. You must have a minimum of 25 design run plays. Well, let's look at Philadelphia now. Well, Jalen Hurts, he runs, as you know. Jalen Hurts was the leading rusher in the Super Bowl, and that says a lot when you've got the matrix on your team. But unlike the Rams, which we'll chat about them a little bit later, but unlike the Rams, KC did find a way to keep the matrix in check. I mean, he didn't go buck wild, running loose in the secondary. So, good, check. But despite that part of the problem being solved, Well, my other two keys for the Rams, not turning the ball over. KC did have turnovers. They lost the turnover battle. And most importantly of all, I tried to warn McWonder, and I am looking at the data here. And most importantly of all, you've got to follow the 25-30 principle. Follow the principle to victory. One team did, and one team did not. So let's look at the rushing component. Jalen Hurts, 11 carries, 72 yards, as I say, the leading rusher on the day. The Matrix, Saquon Barkley, had 25 carries, only 57 yards. They bottled him up. They kept him in check. That's a 2.3 yard per carry average. But you see what Philly did, though? Take note, McWonder. You see what Philly did, even though Barkley only averaged a paltry 2.3 yards per carry. They gave him the ball. They let him tote the rock. They handed off to their running back 25 times. By himself, he meets the metric for the 25-30 principle, a minimum of 25 run plays. Saquon Barkley, the Matrix, had 25 run plays on his own. And then Jalen Hurts, you factor in, had 11 more carries. Gainwell had 6 carries. And so Philly had a grand total of 42 run plays. That's a big green check. And so as you see now, Philly, as they are wont to do, meets both metrics of the 25-30 principle. 25 pass attempts, 42 run plays. That's a balance differential of a plus 17. That's winning territory. Now, conversely, let's look at the losers with that L on their heads. KC. And I will say this about KC. I don't love the Native American mockery and mimicry that you see around the country. You see it down in Atlanta with this tomahawk chopping that they do and this sing-songy, this sing-songy mimicry they do. I don't like it. I don't like the Kansas City football team. Same thing. Chopping and sing-songing and all of this Arrowhead and the Chiefs and all of this Native American tokenism and imagery. I don't like it. And I'm glad to say that the Washington team, now the Commanders, changed their logo and changed their team name away from something so distasteful as the previous name. And I'm glad that the Cleveland baseball team, now the Guardians, changed their name, changed their logo away from the Native American mockery and imagery. These people were brutalized. They were savaged, and they have been essentially wiped out other than pockets on so-called reservations. And then you name your sports teams after them, and you parade these costumes around, and you have these images, and it's highly inappropriate. And I would like to see the KC team change their name, and I imagine that won't happen, nor the Atlanta Braves. But kudos to Cleveland and to Washington for doing the right thing. Now, back to regularly scheduled programming. The losers with the L on their heads, KC. Well, let's look at it. Patrick Mahomes, the Magic Man, or he had been. He had 21 pass completions, 32 pass attempts. Right there, they're already over. But wait, there's more. The formerly Magic Man, Mahomes, was sacked 6 times. Oh, say it ain't so, Mahomie. 6 sacks with 32 pass attempts. You factor that in, that's a grand total of 38 pass attempts. That's a big red X on the passing metric. Now, let's look at rushing, and this was even more eye-popping. KC rushing. KC's quarterback was also their team's leading rusher on the day. Isn't that interesting? I wonder, has that ever happened in Super Bowl history where the opposing quarterbacks were both the leading rushers on their respective teams? The thing was, though, Jalen Hurts had a beautiful yards per carry average, but not Mahomie. Mahomie, well, he was the leading rusher with only 4 totes, 4 carries for 25 yards. It's a 6.2 yard per carry average, but you see already where I'm going with this. 4 carries, 25 yards, and that is your leading rusher in the game. Hunt had 3 carries. P. Ryan had 1. Pacheco had 3. They had a grand total, my folks, of 11. Oh, so paltry. 11 rush attempts for the entire game. And I understand. You're going to say, well, they got behind and they had to throw. But see, here's the thing. They abandoned the run. They eschewed the run too soon. Just like with the Matrix, even though he wasn't popping anything off, they kept handing him the ball. You've got to keep running the ball. You must. Well, KC did not. And so that's 38 pass attempts. That's 11 total rushes. That's a negative 27 balance differential. And so, in every which way, KC got that ass whooped. That's the easiest way to put it together for you. It was a beatdown of epic proportions. And I'll just say this here. I think maybe finally now, the mystique of Mahomie and Kelsey and KC, that mystique, I think, has finally been pierced. I don't think any team going forward will ever feel that tightness and that wariness and that jumpiness that teams felt when they played KC. They always felt there was some magic that was going to undo them. And Philadelphia showed them how you deal with magic. You put math on it. You put the 25-30 principle on it. And you play physical ball. You know how they say, we're going to line up and we're going to punch them in the mouth. Well, that is exactly what Philadelphia did to Mahomie. I mean, there's this one sack he took among many, 6 total. But there's the one, I believe it was the first one or the second, when Jalen Carter, who wrecked the game for the Rams, and I'll speak on the Rams in just a bit, but Jalen Carter sacked Mahomie, and as he did, he just smacked the snot out of him on the way down. And it's like, that is hitting somebody in the mouth, and it could have been a penalty, but it wasn't. And I'm sure Mahomie's head was ringing. And it just looked like KC was outmatched, overwhelmed, and they thought, well, we got the mystique. The mystique is gone. Philly destroyed the KC mystique. And so, for the postseason, ended up, after going 10-3 last year, 13 postseason games. Oh, this year, my folks, I only went 8-5. And part of it was because I too felt that leeriness, that concern about betting against my homie. I've just seen it too many times, and now I feel free of that. Now I can make my predictions based on what I really believe, what I can empirically observe, and not on mystique and magic, but on math. Hashtag not a coincidence. The 25-30 principle is the football golden rule, and it has held up all season long, and it's held up for years. And so if you're waiting for it to fall apart or to come undone, you're gonna be tired of waiting, because the principle is real. So enough said there. Now, as you know, my folks, every year during the run-up to the Super Bowl, especially the week of the Super Bowl, and the media converges on the host city, and the football world is focused on the upcoming big game. But this season, the NBA hijacked Super Bowl week with all the trades, and I've got a big episode coming up on the Lakers, so that will be my next episode. Stay tuned for that, coming right up. But during Super Bowl week, there's always scuttlebutt, I'll call it. You know, I call it feeding the pigeons. You know, they're these guys, and it's their job. They come out and they sprinkle bird seed to the media, to the pigeons, and the pigeons nibble it up. You know, the ferret in them, they nibble it up. And so the ferret and many of the other so-called experts have been nibbling on bird feed apparently generated from the Rams regarding the availability of Matthew Stafford. Matty from the D. Doc, really? Now, this intrigues me greatly because, well, I'm sure McGenius and the Sneedster must have a plan, but I am at a loss to see what it is they're seeing or why they would be floating this kind of information about their quarterback. Now, I know it always comes down to money, and there may have been a bit of a drop-off in Matty's overall performance, but he's still a big game quarterback. He's still got the potential to win you a game whenever you step out on the field. He still is future Hall of Fame bound. So it makes me wonder what's really at work here. Now, I told you couple episodes ago that I thought we were going to be looking at the end of the trail with Soup, and that seems very clearly to be what has happened. In fact, Soup came out, he broke ranks and sent a tweet out to the public saying, hey, you know, the Rams told me they don't want me back. They're trading me right away. They said that's it, the end of the trail. And he said, I don't agree with what they're saying. I've still got a lot of football left in me to play, but apparently, it won't be with the Rams. He said he thought he would start and finish his career as a Ram. It's a cold business, I guess, because Soup was considered one of your core members. But, you know, production dips and that contract money starts coming due and the calculus begins. So I do believe I will have to keep a tab on what happens in the Rams offseason, and I don't know if I'll do a weekly episode next season, but I'm very much intrigued to see how these next few weeks of the offseason play out and what the team looks like to start the new season. So we'll keep an eye on that. But so long, Soup. Happy trails. You know, he had a spectacular run with the Rams, and I almost feel like in a sentimental way, you would think there might be a way to keep a guy like that on the team just as a third as a third option receiver. You know, he's a good culture guy. He's smart. He knows how McWonder likes to run the program. So I don't know, what's really going on the inside of it. But apparently word is the Rams were not pleased as Soup went public with this information. And that has even further burned the bridge between the two parties. So it definitely looked like we saw the last of Soup as a Ram. But this scuttlebutt in the week of the Super Bowl about Maddie, it's peculiar to me, very curious. I don't know, because the team looks to me to be just about ready to make another run. But you gotta have somebody pulling the trigger that you can rely on and count on. And if it's not Maddie, then who would it be? We'll just have to see. And so, my folks, there it is. Back-to-back episodes with alacrity, just to prove last week's shorty wasn't a fluke. And so what I'm going to ask now from you, what I'm going to ask you to do is throw me one of these. Please like the video, subscribe if you haven't already, leave me a comment. Let me know what you're thinking. And until the next one, which will be very soon, because as I said, that Laker episode, it's just about ready to come out of the oven. And so until then, my friends, Scotty says, thanks for watching. One love.